Proverbs 27:17 says, iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. But hustle culture and a bunch of gurus are telling you to isolate yourself, cut everyone off, and grind in the shadows. It sounds tough on some motivational reel and on content and whatnot, but the reality is, isolating yourself is the easiest and fastest way to just completely stop you from reaching your potential. Ambitious men love the idea of building alone, just being entirely separate, building this empire, doing it alone in the dark, and then like showing up with this like amazing thing that they've like come forward with. They want to do it all by themselves. Here's the thing, like grinding in isolation, it's going to leave you in a place that doesn't make you strong. It just makes you blind. And so when you operate alone, you just create an echo chamber of your own limiting beliefs and your own ideas. And you can't out earn them. You're not going to out earn them. You're not going to outgrow them on your own with a broken identity. You're just not going to do that. You're not going to. If you're the only one in the room, then you're the only one in the room. And that's it. Like, you're not getting feedback from the marketplace. You're not getting ideas from other people. You're not having people check you and make sure that you're staying on track. And that is just never going to work long term. If you're in business long enough, you know that the market gives you feedback, but also your peers give you feedback. And if you're just in an echo chamber, it's never good for anyone. So we are wired for pain avoidance. When things get hard in your business, in your marriage, your instinct is to just pull away and handle it completely on your own. Isolate yourself, do it yourself, whatever, pull away, or just completely push through. But here's the thing, if you're doing that and you're isolating yourself or you're just brute forcing it, you're just going to have complete spiritual and behavioral drift, just lack of alignment. You're not getting checked by your peers. You're not getting feedback, and you're just going to start making compromises. You're going to have anxiety spikes, probably erratic mood swings, and there's just nobody checking your blind spots. This is going to lead to self-sabotage. It's just inevitable. I see it all the time. If nobody's checking your blind spots and you're in your own echo chamber, stuck in your limiting beliefs, stuck in that anxiety, the self-sabotage is just going to come through. And then what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to reach the next level with your career, your business, your marriage, whatever it is that you're working on. Your goals are just going to get completely stunted on the growth. And that's just not what anybody wants. And this whole like isolate yourself, hustle culture thing of just grind and isolate yourself and keep your head down and do all this work. I get what they're trying to say. Yes, you have to work hard for things in your life, but you don't have to live that burden alone and shoulder everything yourself. We're not meant to live like that. Like this whole thing of like the lone wolf. Well, wolves live in packs. They don't live alone. All right. That's just how it is. So why listen to me? Well, because I lived it. I lived it. When I was scaling my digital marketing agency to a 7-figure exit, I tried to carry the entire weight on my shoulders. I actually set out with the intention of building the company completely on my own, doing everything myself. Literally all of it. Eventually I outsourced my like accounting filing, but that's just to do it with a CPA. But I did my own bookkeeping even. Like I did everything myself. I didn't outsource anything. I did all the client work. I did everything myself for a while. And I was very profitable, but I was completely suffering. Eventually, I knew I had to build out a team if I wanted to scale it and do things properly. And I did that. But even then, I still didn't have good mentorship and good peers to like help me check what I was doing and like figure out like, hey, am I out of balance? Like what's going on with my lifestyle? Am I letting, balls drop in certain areas? So I didn't have all that. Now on paper, I had won. Like I had a 7-figure exit. It was amazing. But internally, I had completely crashed. It wasn't until I was going through divorce and just a complete identity crisis that I started to really have and get lifted up by other men. I started to have other men in my life that lifted me up, peers, colleagues, just a brotherhood. And I'll tell you, it completely changed everything for me when I finally did have that. Once I dropped the ego and I started to just completely align with God, have a solid brotherhood, my next businesses started to grow with zero burnout. It felt motivating. It felt amazing. Like I could talk to people, I could have camaraderie, and my happiness increased, and I just didn't feel alone anymore. Not only did I have God and the Holy Spirit, but I also had this whole big abundance of men in my life that could help lift me up, but also hold me accountable. It was a beautiful thing. Like I had lived most of my life up until like my 30s, like my early 30s. I'm in my late 30s now, but in my very up until my early 30s, I didn't have that. I was just grinding alone. And yeah, I had a marriage and stuff, but I didn't have a peer group of men who were lifting me up. I mean, there was a couple people throughout my life. Like at one point, I worked at a company and I had the CEO, and we have stayed in touch. And that was amazing, but it wasn't enough. I really needed to have a more solid community. And in this day and age, it's harder to find than ever because people are just not really doing that in person. However, we have the technology that makes it easy to do it online. So that's been an amazing thing because I can connect with men who are like-minded even if they don't live near me, and that's been really great. And also just having that accountability has been so helpful. So in hindsight, I really just wish I had a coach and a mentor while I was building my agency. But, as they always say, hindsight's 2020. Things would have went much differently, and I think I would have been in a much better place as I was doing it, but that's okay. Now, if you're an established founder who's white knuckling your success, you're just carrying the weight of your company alone, and you just really need to fix your foundation, click the link in the description and you can book a free one-on-one discovery call with me right on manrewired.com. And we can map out the internal bottlenecks that are keeping you isolated and stopping you from growing your business so that we can engineer your next stage of growth. So just think about this though. While you're trying to work on yourself, think about all this like building a massive custom home. You can pour concrete, you can frame walls yourself, but you can't architect a sturdy reality if you're the only one inspecting the foundation. It's just not going to work, right? If you're the only one that's doing it, you don't know what you don't know. If you don't have a master inspector walking the site to point out any structural flaws and you're just doing it yourself without really having any expertise in it, you're not going to know that maybe there's a crack in the foundation until the roof caves in. And or you might even just put up your walls wrong, and then like everything starts to collapse. You start to have all kinds of problems. It's the classic thing of knowing that we don't know what we don't know. Blind spots by definition are spots that we cannot see. I understand that like sometimes you have to tune out outside noise, right? Sometimes outside noise is not warranted and it's not helpful and it can be detrimental. But there's a time to get direct feedback as well. It's crucial to our success and really here's the thing. Not only is it crucial to our success, but fulfillment comes from this. Having fulfillment comes from having really, really positive feedback and negative feedback that we can apply that's valid. Because then it'll stop us from wasting our time and our energy. And that's the thing. Like right now, what we're trying to do so that we can grow successfully and scale our businesses, have a good career, have good relationships, we have to know that we're not wasting time and energy. Because that's the thing. Like, do you really want to be building some whole business and then launching it and having crickets? No, of course not. But a lot of people do that. They put their head down and they work on something so deeply that they're so married to it that they can't even adjust because they never got feedback in the process and they wasted so much time and energy. And then they get stuck in the sunk cost fallacy where they feel like there's so much sunk costs, time, energy, money, that they can't even let it go and adjust. You don't want to do that. Don't do that. Like please, for the love of God, don't do that. And I'm saying that facetiously, obviously, but really don't do that. So to break the lone wolf cycle, you really need to build what I would call a sturdy brotherhood. It requires just 3 pillars: total accountability, pattern recognition, and the kingdom anchor. So I'll start with total accountability. Men will tell you the truth if you have the right men in your life. So you need men who will tell you the truth, not just what your ego wants to hear. You don't want people to just validate you. You want people that tell you the truth. Now, I'm going to give you an example here of when I started dating again. So after I got separated and I was going through my divorce, I decided that I was going to start dating again. And it didn't take me that long to meet somebody, and I started falling in love. And I remember I called one of my friends, one of my brothers, and I said to my friend, I said, hey, this is what's going on. I started talking about it, and he goes, Nick, is this really what you want? Ask yourself, are you jumping into something too fast? Is this a mistake? Is this really what you want? Like, are you sure that this is the right thing? Are you sure you don't have clouded judgment? And he started asking me hard questions, really hard questions. And at first it stung a little bit. I'm like, man, I wanted my guy to be happy with me. But I appreciated him so much for doing this because he was really showing me that he cared about my well-being. And we had a long conversation about it. And the truth was, it was a good move, actually. Like, I was making the right choice. And that woman has actually become my fiance. So it was the right choice I was making. But I thanked him so much for just being willing to drill down with me and have a hard conversation so that I really analyzed it and took it seriously. And that's the kind of man you want in your life. You want a brotherhood like this. Another time, when I first launched Man Rewired, I got direct feedback from a couple of men that are part of my brotherhood, people I trust, to really just say, hey, look at the website, look at my branding, look at the colors, look at my logo. Just really just give me direct feedback, like on the stuff I said in these sentences. Let me know, because I want to make sure that my message comes off properly. And like, I'm so close to it that I'm not going to be able to see it. And they gave me some harsh feedback that was, a mixture of positive and harsh feedback, but it was true. It was honest. I didn't take it personally. I used it as constructive feedback, and then I built it up. And that's been amazing for me. And I thank them for that. And this is all about putting your ego away and realizing that these people are people who truly care about you and they want you to be lifted up. It's a peer group that lifts each other up to the next level. You're surrounding yourself with people who are all moving up in life. That's what you're trying to do here. The next thing goes into the pattern recognition. You need other high-level men who can spot your neurological bottlenecks and self-sabotaging language instantly, even when you're blind to it. So they can call you out so that you can do the work. Like, if they notice that you're, just feeling sorry for yourself and not actually, making actionable change or whatnot, they can call you out and say, hey, I can hear the way that you're talking about this, the way that you're moving. I can see that you're probably sabotaging yourself here. You're making a bad choice. I had a conversation with a friend recently where I did this for them. I'm not going to go into the details. I'm going to protect their privacy, but I will tell you, they were doing something that, this man was doing something that was clearly not in his best interests, and it was definitely self-sabotaging behavior. And I said, hey, I think you're making a choice here that's going to, where you're going to screw yourself over. Like, you're sabotaging your own success here. You are your own bottleneck in this situation, and the choices that you're going to make are going to have a negative outcome most likely for you and create a lot of pain. And it was not what he wanted to hear. I'm going to tell you straight up, it was not at all what he wanted to hear. But he thanked me for it. He thanked me for sharing wisdom because he needed to hear it. It's not what he wanted to hear, it's what he needed to hear. And there's a key difference in what we want and what we need. You have to have people around you that will give you what you need, not just what you want. Now, going back to Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. You need men who are aligned with God's purpose, not just Babylon's greed. It's important to have men who have similar values to you, a solid spiritual connection, and then that way you end up with alignment through and through between your spiritual purpose and your friend group, and everybody's aligned in that way. I can't stress this enough. Having men who have a spiritual connection just like you do, it's crucial. It's crucial. It really is. Now, how does this actually scale your company? That's going to probably be a question that comes up. So how does this actually scale your company? Well, when you're stuck in a massive business decision, like whether to hire a new executive or walk away from like a toxic client, or, or figure out like different strategies with like partnerships, things like that in your business, big decisions, well, your isolated brain is going to operate in a way that's out of fear or fight or flight, some level of anxiety, not in a clear-minded way like a solid brotherhood and group of peers will give you. So when you bring that to a brotherhood of men who are in alignment with you, they can strip away that emotion and they can help you execute, just a pattern interrupt, for lack of a better term, so that you don't have that loop of self-sabotaging behavior. They can stop you so you can make a decisive and just powerful leadership move. And also, they can challenge you. Hey, is this right with God? Have you prayed on this? They can ask you questions like that, and they can check you so that you're not just operating out of this fight or flight anxiety and making a decision that might not be the best one for you. So think about this. Let's do a structural check-in with you right now. If your business lost its biggest client tomorrow, or if your personal life started to collapse, like in some way, who are the 3 men you would call who will actually be real with you? Who are the 3 men that you would say, you know what, they got me, they can help me through this. I know that I can trust their feedback. I know that it's going to be helpful for me to call these people. Who are they to you? Do you have 3 that you can think of right away? If not, and by the way, I'm not talking about like the surface level networking guys, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who actually know who you are. They know your foundation. If you don't have those names, your structure is at risk. The structure of your whole life is at risk if you don't have that. And I'm not saying this to be hyperbolic. I'm saying this because it is just true. And I know it because I lived it. And you know it if you're living it too. So I built a free school community called Man Rewired. It's specifically for this. So it's a brotherhood of ambitious men, all doing identity work, working towards their purpose, building things. There's a link in the description, so you can check that out. You can join today. You can introduce yourself. Stop trying to build your legacy in the dark. Live by design, not by default. I'll see you in the next one.